Ian, we have a Patreon.
We do. Patreon.com/CU podcast. You go, you pay, you get stuff in return, like the full video podcast.
Yeah, you do.
Poll topics, hangouts, writings. I'll do a writing. What's the poll topics today, Rick? Patricio.
Don't talk to someone like that can use a sword.
Patricio.
In second place, retro game / consoles you regretted selling. 23%. And in first place, 77%. What game series should you not start with the first game? You should skip and start with the sequel.
Well, I'm going to go right into what I've been playing this weekend, which is Heroes of Might and Magic. One of the greatest video games ever made.
I think I played it for 10 minutes once. I should really play it.
So good.
My roommate used to play it in college.
Heroes of Might and Magic 2 Gold is a great place to start. It really kind of evolves the formula from the first one, balances it a bit. The sprite work is great. A lot of maps, a campaign with two different protagonists that you can choose from, and with the map editor, that game can just go on forever.
Right, this is straight role playing, right? It's like I'm confused with Heroes of Might and Magic.
No, I'm saying Heroes of Might and Magic is what I'm talking about.
So Heroes is like the strategy.
Heroes is the strategy one.
Got it. That's the one I played for 10 minutes.
So basically in Heroes of Might and Magic, you start off on maps of various sizes, and the goal is to, defeat a certain kingdom or defeat everything.
Yeah.
And the heroes, each hero has its own special powers, and heroes can take over castles. You build stuff in the castles. Each one's different. Like there's a water-themed castle. There's the ogre-themed castle. There's the vampire-themed castle. And you get different units from those. And each hero travels around with those units, and you use them to take out the other units or just the enemies on the map. But the first game is good, and it's on the Genesis, actually. I think the first game was King's Bounty. And it's fun, but there's really no reason to start there. You don't need to. Unless you really need to get into the lore, you're fine starting.
So the sequel is the one you should start with.
Yeah, start with the sequel on that one. And the other one that I would think of, well, actually, the other one that I thought of was one that you mentioned earlier, so I'm going to let you jump into that.
I mentioned one earlier?
Yeah.
What did I mention?
Civ.
No, I didn't mention the podcast.
I meant earlier today. Yeah, you mentioned Civ.
That was yesterday on the phone, Ian. It wasn't today.
Okay, well, whatever.
You're on Triceratops.
You mentioned your brain. It. You mentioned it.
Yeah, so Civilization is a classic game. Microprose 94, I think the first one is, without looking. I try to do stuff without looking. I don't want to pretend to be I know it all when it comes to this stuff, but I think it's like 94. I got it on a four pack. Well, the other Microprose stuff like Stealth Fighter, the Railroad Tycoon, and then another game. So the first Civ is a fine game. Yeah. Obviously, it's a fine game. I'm not saying you shouldn't play that game ever, but the sequel is a masterpiece. Civ 2 used to be considered for a long time one of the best PC games ever made.
Oh, absolutely.
It's a masterpiece. It perfected the balance of the formula of the first one, the balance of the units. It added health for units. That was I believe it did. God, if I get that wrong, I'm gonna get killed. I believe it added the health for units. If not, okay, fuck you, Pat. But I think it did. It branched out the science tree to a big degree. The graphics are a lot better.
Yes,
on Civ 2. That's only 2 years later. It looks a lot better. It gives you a much bigger world and it adds a bigger custom and a bigger map in general to explore. It builds up the alternative endings. I think it has. God, now I'm confusing if it has everything besides the Alpha Centauri ending. But the point is like it just really polishes the first one and adds a lot of different layers to it. And it has the goofy stuff that probably looking back is like dated. It has the full motion video advisors and stuff. I think it's cute and kitschy for the mid 90s to do that. But it even adds more civilizations. It even adds more civilizations to play. I think the original Civ only had like 7 or 8 total. This one adds more than that. So yeah, it's a fantastic game. That's one. The one though that you come back to because the first one's unplayable is Street Fighter. Street Fighter's unplayable.
Yeah,
for the most part.
Yeah.
Like, that's where I was thinking about, like, what is unplayable, the first one? But it's kind of hard to think of an unplayable game that actually got a sequel because, like, on paper, Street Fighter shouldn't have got a sequel. They should have just said, no, this is a bad idea. But Capcom's probably, oh, no, we can perfect this now and actually do a decent game. But yeah, Street Fighter 2, you should never play Street Fighter 1. Just play it as an oddity. Like, well, this is interesting. Proof of concept, I guess.
Yeah. For me, another one would be, there's a lot of RPGs where the first game is fine. It's fun, but I don't know that I would necessarily tell you to start there if you came to me and you're like, recommend me a really good console RPG. I love the first Dragon Quest. And I was
going to say Dragon Warrior. Yeah.
And I love the first Final Fantasy, too. They're fun games, but you absolutely don't need to start with those, especially now.
From what I hear, the first Dragon Warrior is like super grindy. It only has obviously the one character.
It is. It's press A to win. I mean, it's
let's kill 70.
There's some random stuff, but there's literally a rigid schedule to follow.
It's rough.
Level up to this level, then you'll have enough hit points to take on this dungeon.
And I don't remember there being a decent story either.
No, it's simple. But I like it. I mean, I like it for its historical significance. I like the music. I like the art, but it's not where I would suggest. I would suggest you start with 3 or 4 if you're playing Dragon Quest. And with Final Fantasy, jump right to 4. Jump right to 4.
Wow. You're saying just go right to the 16-bit era?
The second and third one that were on the Famicom, they're fun to go back to if you want the history, but the sequel to Final Fantasy in some ways is actually worse than the original, I think. It's got a weird combat system in terms of how you level up. And the third one's tough. But I like it. But yeah, 4 is when it starts to get very story focused, and it starts to get that, I don't know, that epic feel that, JRPGs are known for. So that's what I would suggest.
We got some in the comments on Patreon. You also leave comments. Someone said Metroid. So I guess are saying Super Metroid or Metroid 2? The Return
Probably
of Samus.
Super Metroid is what they're saying. I know a lot of people who find the first Metroid extremely difficult, and it is. It's certain things you just have to figure out, and it doesn't really point you in the right direction. It's tough.
Yes, I will say that. You want to make you want to get crazy and say Legend of Zelda puts you in a spot you know where to go. No. Metroid puts you in a spot where you have to figure out where the hell to go.
Sure.
And to explore and get those fucking weapons to advance. And you better find the little cute little rolly ball bomb thing real quick. Let's see. Metal Jesus said, System Shock. The sequel is better in almost every way. Then he said Final Fantasy. Most people agree that if you want best classic Final Fantasy, start with the 4 remakes or 3-6, depending on the region. So it's kind of in line with you.
Yeah.
Right there. Someone said Legend of Zelda, and I gave him a little weird face, like, you gotta be kidding me. Someone said, unironically, I hope people mess with us. Mario, I recommend starting at Super Mario World or 64. No.
No.
Well, 64 is an entirely different game, first of all. It's going to 3D.
That's just, I mean, everyone can have their opinion, but I one thing that I will argue until I'm dead is that the first Super Mario Brothers is still a fun, nearly perfect game.
It's perfect. He even responded, I'll give you a chance, Bruce. He said, blasphemy, I know. I just feel like if someone has started from scratch today, Super Mario World is more forgiving, lets you save. From the perspective of trying to ease a beginner, well, you got the little hold the A and you can continue on the level a world you left off on Super Mario Brothers. They put that in there.
I mean, he's not wrong. There are certain things, quality of life upgrades that are just nicer because they came later. Being able to save halfway through a game is fantastic, but I don't think that makes Mario 1 a bad game.
No, Mario 1 is not that tough where you have to do that.
Right.
I think, where it's an essential. Someone said Metal Gear. That's probably, a lot of people don't like the original Metal Gear.
It's not great. Yeah. Metal Gear Solid is where that series really came into its own.
Chris says Street Fighter, yes. Pokemon, is it the original Game Boy games?
I love
Final Fantasy. Contra, hell no.
No.
I would argue that Contra is better than Super C.
Contra is better than Super C. I mean, my favorite one is Hardcore, but that doesn't take anything away from the first game.
Warcraft. I should have brought up Warcraft, since being that I played both when they came out. It's not like Warcraft doesn't have any value to it at all, the original Warcraft. But 2 does perfect what 1 did.
Right.
2 is a classic game. 2 really made, first of all, 2 had the different races in it. It had the elves, and it wasn't just humans on that side. And it really had a lot more fun units for both orcs and humans. It added the aerial stuff. That was great. And the ships. It added a whole other dimensions there. And the fucking music is fantastic, like orchestral score, and it's a nice graphics upgrade there, and it has all the full, has more of the, I think more full voice stuff too than the original. 1 is not a bad game, obviously. 2 is a classic, so I do agree with that. Warcraft 2, was it Tides of Darkness? Great freaking game. And then what else is on here? Ghosts and Goblins, probably. I'd probably play Ghouls and Ghosts versus Ghosts and Goblins. But Ghosts and Goblins has some value. Mega Man. Oh, controversial. Skip the first Mega Man and go to 2?
No, I think that's fair. I think that's pretty fair. The first Mega Man is, I mean, it's what it is, but I would not. I've literally told people in the store before, unless you're collecting, you can start with 2 or 3.
Unless they're a collectionist. Battlefield. Yes. I'm not familiar with what the original Battlefield was. World War II, right? Was it 1942? I think I played that one in college. Prince of Persia. I'm not familiar enough to know if 2 is that much better than 1. Is 2 like a glorified remake of 1?
I feel like that's what it is. I don't know if that's actually true.
Then Ultima. I don't know anything about the Ultima stuff besides what Ian says in the video game years, and what I have to add there. And then finally, Chris says here, King/Space Quest, and that's where I say no, because those games did not evolve enough between 1 and 2. They're basically the same. It's the same engine, 1 and 2 on those. And at that point, it's all about the story on those first games.
Right.
And I never played through the first King's Quest, but I have played through every Space Quest game except for 6, the last one. Space Quest 1 has a great story. And I do not recommend skipping that for the sequel. Unless you're saying like go straight to like 3 or 4, I still wouldn't say that. Like their story and humor.
If you're playing those types of games, you're probably
you're not playing that for the gameplay. You're playing that for the.
You're fine with going back to slightly more dated gameplay, I think.
But again, like 1 and 2 are like this, especially for King's Quest. 1 and 2 are like the same exact engine and graphics.
Yes.
It didn't evolve. You're still using the parser. You know, the Scum engine. Is that what it was?
Scum.
No, or Scum with the point and click.
Scum was Lucas.
Okay. Get that mixed up. All right, well there you go. Any NES games where you can skip the original? That Lolo? Could you skip the first Lolo, Ian?
There's no reason to. It's just more puzzles. Mega Man, I guess.
Ninja Gaiden, you shouldn't skip the first one.
Zelda, you can skip the first one.
I'm sorry. What?
Skip the first.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. What?
You can skip the first Zelda.
I'll fucking skip you across a fucking lake. Fucking roll you into a ball.
Good stuff.